And it's a closed record hearing also on the Cup Baker Daily Winery.
Hold on one moment.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Well, we don't need it. Yes. Which is for them. Okay.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, November 2nd, regular Franklin County Commissioner Board hearing. We have a full slate of commissioners in the chamber with our Administrator Keith Johnson, the clerk of the board. And I will call the meeting to order. If you'd all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the office business vouchers.
Move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $104,763.36 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next is the,
We have one more.
okay,
Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the total amount of $967,594.95. As presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have the consent agenda 1 through 6.
Move for approval of items 1 through 6 on the consent agenda with discussion on number 1.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the consent agenda 1 through 6 with discussion on 1. I would also like to discuss 3. So Commissioner Mullen, please go ahead with discussion on 1.
So this is in regards to the Catholic Housing Services Project of Eastern Washington for the Haven project. I guess my question would be, has there been any public notice or information about the location of the property at which they're wishing to purchase?
Have you received any, Keith?
I believe the city of Pasco has had some hearings on this, but I've not received any input from the public.
I went and looked at the property to see where the location was at. And I noticed right off the bat, it's located right across the street from the Moose Casino. And there's also those apartments that are being built right on the river. So I was curious too, as if there was any concerns from the public. But hearing none.
I have not heard any, but
Okay.
don't know to what extent the city has engaged the neighborhood.
Okay. You have any more questions, Commissioner Mullen?
Is there, do you know if there's any meetings set up to discuss it any further?
That I don't know. I could ask the city what their level of involvement is, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay. All right.
My understanding was that this was a decision reached after they had initially planned a different location further east on Lewis Street, and that this was an accommodation to the resistance that they had for that earlier location, and that this was an acceptable location for the city.
So our approval is not the final say. It'll be done by the city?
Yeah, in terms of permitting and those kinds of things, that all has to be done by the city of Pasco.
Okay.
This is just a approval for the land acquisition.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
And then on number 3, I see our assessor is here. Could you come forward, John? I was just wanting to know what kind of numbers are we seeing on, number 3 is extension period for the Board of Equalization to hear property tax appeals. How many more are we hearing this year from previous years?
We actually are hearing less this year than we did last year
Okay.
and some previous years. We really took it upon ourselves to work with every single person that had what they thought was going to be an appeal. We talked to them. A lot of them came in. We had appraisers work with them, show them, explain things. So we've had a huge amount of interaction with the public. So we have less appeals this year.
Okay.
I think we're about 40-ish. 19 of them are from one company. So in comparison to, mid to high 40s and up to 60 in the past.
Okay. All righty. Well, that was my question. I was just curious if the numbers were way up or.
Yeah, we're down. We had the first week, we had about 60% more calls, people calling in because of the changes. But we had good interaction with them, good explanation. So the actual appeals are less.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we've got a motion or the 6 consent items. I think we have a motion and a second with discussion. That's over. So all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. All right, next down to the commissioner administrator updates. Keith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Continuing work on ARPA Recovery Act proposals. We received a couple within the last week. That's kind of being considered in conjunction with the budget review. We had our budget hearings last week, and so now I'm going through those items in the budget a lot more detail to try to determine what recommendations we might make to the board and what the path forward for next year's budget would look like. Also spend some time with an issue with BCES and BIPIN. I think, as you know, BIPIN is undergoing a major software change and upgrade that has created some concerns about how it interacts with the CAD system, which is the system that dispatchers use at the dispatch center in Richland. And so we are in the process of engaging a specialist. I think you know Steve Reinke. He helped us with the original consolidation of the dispatch centers, but has a lot of experience in CAD upgrades. So we're meeting tomorrow to sign a contract or approve a contract with him to help us get some professional advice through this transition where BIPIN, where we can assure that BIPIN and the dispatch center can communicate and not have any risk of a CAD system going down. So it's a very technical piece of the process, but it's a necessary one, and we're working across the region to make that happen.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay, Commissioner Penn.
So Happy to be back after a couple of weeks of enjoying the realities of COVID infection, provided to me courtesy of someone identified in a small group setting who didn't think it was important to wear masks. I think it is. I'm on jury duty this week and next week, and because I hadn't seen much jury activity, I did a little checking with the clerk's office. Want to share that we haven't had a jury trial in Franklin County since February of 2020, which, given that we send out about 300 notices every 2 weeks, by my basic math, that says that we have tied up 2 weeks' time for 12,000 Franklin County citizens over the last year and a half without needing their services. And I think it would be appropriate for us to reach out to the administrative leadership of the courts and see if there isn't a more appropriate approach to this, maybe scheduling jury trials once a month, so that we aren't tying up thousands of our citizens for 2 weeks at a time needlessly. Keep in mind, every time you get this jury notice, cancels trips, it cancels vacations, it cancels all kinds of things. And so long as the courts aren't in need of those jury pools, I think we ought to investigate a more appropriate way of doing that. So I'll be continuing my discussions on that. I had meetings on this subject already, which is why I'm bringing it up over meetings this week. Washington State Association of Counties Federal Issues group is writing the State Association of Counties position on federal issues for all 39 counties. We're just finishing up that work. Excuse me, we've had 2 meetings this week, and we'll be presenting that at the annual County Leaders Conference in Spokane, middle of this month. This week had a day-long meeting with the Washington State County Road Administration Board, which, as you may know, is the board that distributes all of Washington State's gas taxes to the 39 counties. And we set administrative rules and policy on a number of other transportation-related funding issues for major construction projects. A lot of the money that comes to the counties through the rural arterial and other programs is approved by this board of, I believe there's 6 of us. And yesterday's Washington State Association of Counties meeting had a commerce representative, and we went over the latest information available on rental assistance and eviction programs now that the governor has not extended the eviction moratorium past its October 31 sunset. Thank you.
Commissioner Mullen?
So with the budget meetings all last week, that went on, tied up a lot of time. And I just want to say thank you to everyone. I think everyone's doing a great job on the budget. There was no unexplained or extraordinary requests that nothing seemed out of line. I also met with the Ben Franklin Marketing Committee. They want to, just for public notice or notification, people are aware, they want to rewrap their buses. And it's a trial period that they're starting with. And at first they asked for $175,000 for this project, which they thought, well, let's just go ahead and make it $300,000 taxpayer money to rebrand their buses. So if you're familiar with branding in your business, it's a very expensive project. It's probably the most expensive marketing out there. So I just want the public to be aware of the money that's being spent. And again, this is just a trial basis. And that is, again, $300,000 to rewrap the buses. And that's just starting. That's not even all of the buses. That's just the initial program. And that pretty much covers it for this week.
So last week was budget meetings, and we were in here every day through Thursday. And I also thought it went really well. Good presentations. A lot of departments aren't looking for any more funds. I think that's being very conscientious of the taxpayers' money. Had a Ben Franklin operation and maintenance meeting, and again, they were also talking about this rebranding the Ben Franklin Transit name, and I don't know why we got to rebrand it. It's well known. It doesn't need to be rebranded. We don't need to be wasting this money, but again, it looks like they've got plenty to spend. Their budget went up $9 million this year. There was also an Eastern Washington County government meeting that I wasn't able to attend on Friday. I've gotten calls on Mirror Ministries that is planning to put their facility out there. I believe it's on Alder Road. And then I got some calls on Wernat Road about speeding traffic through there again. Getting more calls on that again. That's pretty much it for me for my presentation. So with that, I'd like to open it up for public comment. The next thing on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody for public comment? Anybody on the
Not
phone?
on the phone.
Nothing on the phone. So with that, we'll move on down to the Weed Board 2022 budget presentation. Todd Harris and Betsy Crystal. And the commissioners, you have this in front of you. They came around and handed them out to us. Go ahead, Todd. Thank you. And if you wouldn't mind, please remove your mask so we can hear what you have to say.
Probably can hear me.
Otherwise, it muffles.
Okay. Thank you. Essentially, my budget, I guess, is, I'll start with the payroll side. And what I did, I moved for a 3% increase to kind of bring us up, keep the staff that we have, because we're pretty short staff anymore. That back just did. So basically, to keep us kind of in line with inflation that's coming our way as well. In addition to that, I promoted our inspector to lead, so we'll have two lead inspectors. Betsy is our office manager, and Luis is our new lead. Our second lead inspector is out currently with medical rehab, so he'll be back hopefully the next week here. In order to do this so that we're not pulling too much or adding too much more to our payroll, I pulled a couple thousand out of our overtime budget, so that instead of having $6,000 sitting in our overtime budget, we'll have brought it down to 2 to make the promotion for lead inspector a little simpler and a little less out of our budget. We've only used over the years, about 2,000, I think 2,500 at the most of overtime. So I think we've been pretty careful about utilizing that at any rate. So basically, that's our changes to our payroll for this coming year. What our intended changes are. Any questions or concerns on that?
Keith, when did we get this information? I hope I didn't miss it in the read aheads.
We would have gotten the read ahead material last Thursday.
Okay. Apparently I did miss it. Mr. Harris, you've got how many employees total now?
4.
4. So it's about $2,000 a year averaged across your 4 employees in increased salary?
Yeah, that's pretty close, yes.
You said that was 3%?
Essentially 3%. And then adding in the promotion for the inspector to lead inspector, that's the larger portion that averages everything else up.
Okay.
Looking at the salary and wages with the 4 employees, it looks like it's about a 3.5% increase overall. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's roughly, yeah.
Thank you.
I note that Carly Nave is in the audience, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if there's anything that you can share with us with respect to increases for the rest of the Franklin County team, sometimes worry a little bit. These budgets are subject to board approval. Because the weed board doesn't have an independently elected body that is held accountable for expenditures this board has to approve. And we will be facing a number of requests from bargaining units and others. I don't want to lead the conversation too much, but I think you can see where the concern might be in terms of equity for other employees.
Definitely. And I mean, I will say that Todd and I do work closely together as he prepares his budget. And one thing that is unique to the weed board employees is they are not on a county matrix. So if they were on a county salary matrix with 5% between steps, given their time and position, they would each be getting 5% plus whatever the COLA is.
Okay.
The weed board has taken a little bit different approach and a little more conservative approach to their credit. And generally what I do when Todd sends me kind of what he's thinking is I have a little chart that I put together that puts them kind of where they would be if they were on a county matrix as in any other county department versus what they're proposing.
Mhm.
This is still more conservative than that. So while the numbers, may not match what we end up doing, COLA wise for the rest of the county, given their kind of different scheme that's a little more conservative, I definitely support where they've gone. It's consistent with how they've run their personnel budget for, the time that I've been here, and we've been working closely together on that.
Okay. Well, that's extremely helpful, and that's why we ask questions. I was not aware, or I'd forgotten, I don't know which, that they're not on a step matrix like our other employees. And now that we've got that on the record as we go through looking at increases for other county employees, that difference is out there in the open. So that's really helpful. Is there any reason to contemplate that they ought to be on a department step schedule? I don't need an answer now, just sort of a rhetorical question for future thought, maybe.
No, certainly that's something that we have talked about and considered. As I said, based on kind of the uniqueness of their business, so to speak, and
Right.
The goals of that board and the flexibility that this has afforded them. I think they're in a good spot right now, but that's definitely something that we talk about frequently.
Okay, well, next time we have a discussion about their salaries and increases, please remind me again that they're not on a step schedule.
Will do.
Great, that's good information, thank you.
Okay, Todd, continue.
Okay. The next thing I would kind of like to touch base on a little bit, well, I'll go down through, and Betsy's made the budget, basically highlighted the changes that I made is on the rest of the budget as we went through, basically kind of a balance, kind of conservative. I did not add a whole lot to it. As I mentioned, the payroll is probably the bigger increase that we've done, but just trying to balance where I expect things that are going to go up, things that we've not used as much of, to kind of balance one another, keep from having to increase the bottom line of what we need in our budget. So that's kind of the crux of our budget there.
So on your fuel usage here of 16 increased to 18, do you think that's going to be sufficient to, because I know as much traveling as you do in the spring of the roads,
Yeah,
seems light.
I think we've been under, and I don't think that we're gonna run. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to guess where the fuel prices are gonna go, how high they're gonna go, I should say. They're gonna go up, I know, but our overall mileage as far as spraying the roadsides and our pickup running around inspecting and stuff around the county, I think we should be able to make that work. I feel fairly comfortable with that. So,
Any other questions?
It doesn't appear that there's any anticipated increase in the cost of materials, chemicals either, which surprised me a little bit, but good to hear.
well, there will be some increases as I'll kind of get into when we get into the roadside, but
You think you've got room in the budget though to cover
I
it?
believe we've got enough cushion to be able to handle that. So,
Okay, well, I don't have any other questions. Just want to thank you for working closely with Carly and keeping the county staff in the loop. That was really helpful today, especially.
yeah, no problem. We as she's mentioned, we've kind of discussed every year as to what I'm thinking and what works for the county and so forth. So,
Yeah, well, the fact that you're not on a salary matrix is a pretty significant data point that I'm glad we were able to get that out there.
kind of wanted to mention our cost share program. Last year, the board and I decided kind of midstream through last year that we should increase our budget for the cost share as basically a way to incentivize landowners to go out and do a little additional spraying on noxious weeds. We bumped that up 10,000 to be able to allow a few more participants in it. And basically how we do it, our board sets the rate that we kind of want to stay with, and then allow in X amount of acres to divide that money across. And so with that, we were able to allow 5,000 acres worth of noxious weed spraying throughout the county. A lot of it this year was on CRP acres to help clean up skeleton weed. But we'd also had some others in that we're working on, some rangeland and basically just some lots that might have had some yellow star thistle or diffuse knapweed in that. So good participation. We're going to keep that at 40,000 for this coming year. So there'll be potentially another 5,000 acres of cost share application that we could do this year to keep that going. On the roadside spraying, we talked to Jerry Ellis from Wilbur Ellis, who's our technical advisor, I guess. He's mentioned that chemical prices will probably be in the 12% increase range. So that probably will limit how many miles of roadside we can cover this year. But we've worked with Craig, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to at least reach pretty close to where we were, or a little better than what we did last year. So we'll see how that goes this coming year. We're looking to try and get some more done this fall. The weed board has purchased 500 miles of 500 acres worth of product to do dryland area roads. It's a little less costly mix than what is used on the irrigated side of the county, but it's both of them require some rain, which we didn't get very much of this year, so you'll notice a little more Russian thistle, a little bit more kochia out there on the roadsides than has been normal for the last few years. So, unfortunately, we don't control the rain or aren't able to order it when we need it, and that's kind of our downfall on that this year. So, but we hope to get as much done this fall, weather permitting, to get that. I'll be able to take advantage of this rain that we've been getting here the last few weeks here. So that's kind of about the gist of what I have. Any questions on cost share roadside or?
Questions, commissioners?
How is the public, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
My question would be, how does the public know about the cost share program? And exactly how does that work?
We have it on the website, our FC Weed Board website. We also have a sign truck that we move around the county to kind of announce the start of sign up on that. We have done some promos on KONA radio, news radio, to get that information out there. We've contacted FSA and the USDA office out there to let them know that that is available for those that are working on CRP, and kind of help with CRP renewal as well as rangeland. So we've made contact with several different entities around to let people know, and we have meetings and that through the year to also discuss and get that information out too as well. So
Thank you.
I was just going to ask if you carry any kind of a contingency line in your budget. I don't see one.
No, I don't have that specifically, I guess.
Yeah, well, obviously, if you were to have significant financial difficulties, you could come back to the board, but maybe in future years, you might think about putting in, I don't know, maybe a $5,000 or so contingency line, so that if you do have an opportunity, maybe increased partnering in the farm community for additional spray more than you expect, something like that, instead of having to come back to us, you'd already have some buffer in there. I don't think that on a budget your size, having a $5,000 contingency line wouldn't be an issue. So just something to give you a little more flexibility.
We do have an investment account that we have, I don't know, 180,000 in that.
You can draw on that.
Yeah, we can.
Okay,
we can
well, that
use
gives you the liquidity then. Okay, good, thanks.
So Todd, I want to say thank you first off for contacting me on the borrow pits. You guys called for permission because I had owner will maintain, and I appreciate that, and I gave you permission. That's great communication with the public and the weed board. The other thing is, for skeleton weed, what is the chemical that you suggest using for skeleton weed?
Skeleton weed, primarily, we use open site. Farmers can get chaparral, which is the same product, but it's a little cheaper than what open site is. Those, I guess, without getting into too specific, open site chaparral combination, that one will help control mustards from going crazy after you make that application, because milestone, which is the primary chemistry that's involved in those two, is you will have a lot of mustard coming in on that. So, but I would say chaparral's probably your best bet. You want to make sure you do not get that near potatoes or any broadleaf crops, potatoes, alfalfa, and that sort of thing, because it's
And what about timing? When's the best time to put that on the skeleton weed?
right now.
Oh, this
Right
time
now,
of year?
This fall. Fall is the very best time because right now we've got pretty good moist soil. Get that on the soil with a little bit of expectation of rain to incorporate that into that. Should be really good application to do.
Now, my other question is, does the Washington State Fish and Game, it owns several lots of land out there. And I'm seeing skeleton weed prevalent on there. Are they doing anything to combat that?
They have a fairly minimal budget, as my understanding it, for chemical control. They do some more than they used to, but they are pretty limited on what they can do because they do have some kind of endangered plant species that,
Right.
that they try and protect and that sort of thing. So they are directed to be pretty cautious as what
So,
they do.
so how does skeleton weed multiply and move? Is it through the air?
Yes, it is.
It's flowers, one flower.
Yeah, it has a flower with a real light, fluffy seed that blows in the wind, and it can go quite a ways. And it also has some kind of heavier seed that will drop right around the plant. So you get a kind of a double whammy, if you will. The seed that'll move a distance, then that plant that is generating all that seed, it'll come back year
Yeah.
after year. And and which we call a mother plant, and it'll have a root that, it'll go to China basically to get moisture. Very, very, very
Resilient.
virulent plant.
Yeah, it's resilient. It can live in a desert. So
Mhm.
my question is, we got our weed board and some farmers, we're all trying to get rid of this skeleton weed, but when our neighbor with the Washington State Fish and Wildlife won't do their part, we're sort of beating our head against the wall here. We're not fixing the problem.
It is discouraging, but unfortunately they, as is always the case, the feds generally trump our activities, I guess, at
Okay.
the local level. So
Well, I appreciate everything you guys are doing. You guys are doing a good job with the budget you have. So thank you.
all right, thank you.
Move for approval of resolution 2021-250 as presented regarding the weed board 2022 budget.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that moves us down to the short plat, Derek, for the 2021-24 lot dimension deviation request. Talent?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is a request by one Mr. Tallet, who is seeking to do a 3-lot subdivision over just on the very edge of the shoreline development area. As under Franklin County Code, lot dimensions are supposed to meet a general parameter of 120-foot frontage if it's over 25,000 square feet, 90-foot frontage if it's less than 25,000 square feet. However, as provided for in Franklin County Code 1616040C, an applicant can request a deviation from those dimensional requirements. It's a voice vote, I guess is the term, or just an action item. Basically, the board provides permission or denial of that request, and then staff will process the application based on that decision. Should the board approve the deviation request, then we would note that as finding of fact in the preliminary approval letter. If the board desires to deny the request, then we take it back to the applicant and they resubmit, either meeting those dimensional requirements or doing something else. In this case, he's got an odd shaped It appears that maybe it was originally implemented based on its width and the way it lays out on the property. It's lot number 1 in your packet. It's, I believe if I recall correctly, it's highlighted in red on the black and white version. It's a L-shaped property. He's subdividing that off for a family member, and basically he's wanting to maintain as clean of lines as he can. So he has it wrapping around. And then, so that's the request. As mentioned, it's on the edge of the shoreline area. It's south of Fanning Road, west of Richview Drive, and east of McDonald Drive. The parent parcel is number 126-230-035.
Hey, Derek, I don't see this on any of the aerial imagery, like on page 9 or page 19. Is it only reflected on this, looks like a draft short plat that's been drawn over?
Correct. Yes. The aerial map is primarily a location indicator map.
Well,
It
you-
doesn't show the subdivision lines.
There's one and there's the other, but this one is not shown. Okay. So,
It's all one parcel, actually. That one in the northwest is actually, that everything in yellow on the aerial is the same parcel.
okay, so stand by for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
That's
look
part
at
of-
page 19 in our packet. That's
Yep.
the aerial image with the yellow outlines.
Yep.
Okay, in the lower left of the image, which would be the northwest corner,
Mm-hmm.
there is sort of an odd shaped parcel, an acre or two there with a curved end on the
Correct.
east side. Okay, so that's parcel 3, right? Lot 3.
Yes,
Okay, and the large one, 60 some acres, is lot 2.
correct.
Can you show me on this map where lot 1 is?
On the yellow map or on the black and white?
This
I'm
one right
sorry,
here that's
on the
included in our
aerial.
package.
So you didn't get this page?
That's the short plat map. I'm
Right.
I'm
Right
looking at
now
this
it's-
aerial.
And this aerial represents the property. This is the entire property. It's just one parcel in that
Okay.
yellow. That's
All
what
right.
the aerials to show is
This
the,
aerial is showing short platting.
no, I don't know why, but that northwest, what appears to be a parcel
Mhm.
is not a separate parcel.
Okay,
It is part of
so
all of
this
that.
is pre-short plat. It's all still one parcel.
Correct, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then it sounds like the only thing we have in our packet that shows the 3 parcels
Is the subdivision.
is the
Proposed.
subdivision, is the draft short plat map, which is on page 20, I believe.
Correct.
It shows one of them in red. It doesn't show the other 2 in red. Is there a reason for that?
Because the other two meet the lot requirements.
Okay,
This is the only lot 1 is the one
Okay.
under question.
I understand.
I apologize if that
No,
wasn't
no, that's
clear.
fine. It just, typically when you give us these and there's multiple lots, you've identified all the lots, and this time you did it a little differently, but I understand why. This is not a CUP or an SUP. This is just a request for deviation.
Correct.
Okay. What's the purpose in our code for the 120-foot frontage? Because it would seem to me that we should know the purpose of that before we waive it.
My understanding is it's aesthetics and to address some issues that were occurring down in the urban growth area, West Pasco area, Riverview area, where people were creating very long, thin lots.
And flag lots in particular?
And then flag lots, the city doesn't appreciate.
Would you consider this a flag lot?
I would not do where it's at and kind of what it does. It just wraps around like that.
Okay. With the lot as it's drawn,
Yeah.
it still leaves equivalent right-of-ways for county roadways, equivalent to the ones that are coming in and going out? This wouldn't become a choke point by doing this?
No, and from what I've seen, there's no proposed road alignments for that. I think it was put in there at some point, but then that whole area changed or something. I don't really know. Generally, when we get an application, we discuss it with the applicant
Mhm.
about what their options are. We had that conversation. We explained to them if they do it the way they're proposing, then there's going to be a delay, these types of things. There were some other options they could have gone for, but this is the one they chose.
Yeah, but the question was, do you see this in any way interfering with the roadway through there? It appears to be, and the maps are small, it's hard to tell, but it appears that the width of the roadway through there is equivalent to what is around it. And it does not look like it would be any kind of a choke point. I just want to make sure that any right-of-ways that might exist there aren't choked or restricted by this.
I've received no comments from Public Works or anybody else indicating that would be a concern. Because this does go out for comment before it comes to you, in case there's any concerns of neighbors or agencies. So we've done all that part, all we're at now. So no, it should not be a pinch point or block any proposed access that I'm aware of.
Okay, well, again, it doesn't appear to, but
Yeah.
you can't tell from these small-scale maps. With respect to wellheads, wellhead protection areas, and septic systems, obviously, all of that goes through environmental at the health district. The nature of the lot and its width really makes it difficult to have a 100-foot wellhead protection area without extending into other lots. Is the applicant aware that
Yeah.
the health department's going to have to sign off on a well and where it goes, and same with septic?
Yes, and,
Okay.
and their comments are it's generally acceptable. We may still have, so they didn't see any concerns that they expressed.
Yeah, it can restrict other development plans for the adjacent land, and so long as they've been advised, that's
Yeah.
the concern. I've got other questions, but I'm going to stop for now in case others have questions they want to get in.
Okay.
Commissioner Mullen?
So is this land owned by Lauren Talent?
Yes.
And you're saying that that's a relative that's going to move on to that piece of, that 1 acre piece?
They informed us they were doing the subdivision for, I believe, their daughter, if I remember correctly.
I can't hear you, Derek.
They indicated that they were doing this for a family member, yes.
So the way I understand it, this can be deviated for a family member, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I know you're coming for us for permission, but if they're putting this together for a family member, do they need our permission on this?
They need it for the subdivision. There are other options. They could have done boundary line adjustments. They could have just sited a house on that property because the property, I have to wait. As long as there's not another resident. Yeah, they could have gone through. Yeah, they could have cited a property or a house on there, but it's about the subdivision and the creation of the 1 acre lot. That's why it's been brought to the board. That is shorter than the 120-foot frontage.
That's all
Yeah,
the questions I
and-
have.
And oftentimes that segregation will be done in a short plat so that it can stand as its own lot with its own title and be eligible for financing if someone wanted to build a house and finance. So
Correct.
I understand why they're doing it. Either way, it's still got to have our approval for the variance from the 120 to the 90.
Right.
I don't recall seeing anything in the read aheads about any objection from area properties.
We didn't receive any comments.
And let's see, what was the other one? And you're recommending approval because by and large, you're not seeing any negative impacts to the neighborhood, the community, adjoining property values, any of those kinds of considerations that we normally look at.
Correct.
All right, that's all I've got. Thanks.
Before we vote on it, I guess I should make it aware that I actually own property, not quite adjoining to that, but very nearby. I don't feel that it would be I wouldn't have a biased opinion. And if anything, it would be more competition for the lots that I own. So, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of that.
So Commissioner Mullen, I appreciate the fact that you consistently point out if you feel that you may have a conflict or there might be the perception of a conflict. I think that's an honorable thing to do, and I thank you for doing it. I would like to point out that when you conclude the observation by saying, if anything, it could be competition for me and my property, then that suddenly takes you into the arena of potential for a perceived conflict. Somebody might perceive that you would say vote against it because it is competition. Not suggesting in any way that you would ever do that, just that from the perception standpoint. So at any time, if you think that if any of us feels like a circumstance has the potential to be perceived as influencing our thinking, it's appropriate to recuse oneself. Not trying to tell anybody how to do things, but I was on this board for a few years before somebody was kind enough to point that out to me, and so I'm just passing it along. So if you think that it might be competition for your property, whether that influences your thinking or not, if somebody in the audience were to think that you might vote against it because of that, then you have a potential for a perceived conflict. So thanks for letting me share what somebody was kind enough to share with me several years ago.
All right, thank you.
Okay, with that, if there's no more discussion, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move for approval of short plat 2021-24 for lot dimension deviation as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Been a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, that moves us down to the Zaragoza Resolution 2021-231. Now, this is a closed record hearing, and at this time, I'll open the closed record hearing on the sub 2021-06 Zaragoza Resolution 2021-231. So, Derek, go ahead.
Yeah.
And if I remember right, Commissioner Mullen has removed himself on this one.
Correct.
Okay.
And
He
Mr. Chairman,
recused
point
himself.
of order. Recusals actually require participants who are recusing to leave and not participate physically, not be present in the discussion. I have done this myself on a few occasions where I had a potential conflict. So I'm just, for the benefit of the board and the audience, highlighting what recusal means and requires. And if that's your intent, is to recuse yourself, then it would be appropriate to step out. And to be clear, recusal is an honorable thing. It is in no way should be perceived as somebody having a conflict. It's somebody protecting the public process and the public trust. So thank you for doing that, Commissioner Mullen.
Well, I'd like to chime in here because I realize the fact recusal means that he won't participate, but I don't know why he would have to remove himself from the room. I have never seen this done before except by yourself, Commissioner Peck, and I believe that was your choice. So if Commissioner Mullen wants to stay in the room, I have no problem with him sitting here listening to the discussion as long as he doesn't weigh in.
It's not an issue that I care to debate. You can check with legal counsel after the meeting if he wishes to stay or go. That's his call.
Exactly.
But recusal properly means departing the space. But,
So it's up to you, Commissioner Mullen. If you'd like to remove yourself, that's fine. If you want to stay, it's fine too. It's your prerogative. All right, go ahead, Derek.
So thank you. This was presented at the October 26th board meeting. I guess my question first of all, do you want me to go through the full presentation or are there specific questions or concerns? I'm not sure exactly how you would like to proceed.
I think you might be best to go through the full abbreviated because Commissioner Peck was not in the meeting at that time, and I think he was having a hard time hearing. So I'd like you to just do an abbreviation of it, and maybe he has questions.
So I'll go ahead. It's, if I remember right, 9 or 10 slides, but I'll kind of go through them. But, I won't dwell or try not to read them out. I always try not to read them out, but, so as mentioned, this is a preliminary plat for subdivision sub 2021-06 by Zaragoza. It's called the Zaragoza Edition. Preliminary plat of 8 single-family residential lots on an approximate 10-acre parcel. Site is vacant and located in Clark's Addition. Zoning is rural residential or R1. Comp plan designation is rural residential. This is a map of the property. Primary access will likely come in through Roberta, but they're also proposing an access that runs up like this to Ivy Road, right through here. And then there'll be a central access. The lots will all access this center run. And then, like I said, north and south exits. This is a preliminary plat. And again, as mentioned, the Quail Street that then connects to an existing easement, and then Roberta Road. And then this would be called Quail Road. And then that's the primary access route through the subdivision with lots accessing onto that. Neither, they won't access Roberta nor up here, just through there. So we received a SEPA checklist, and the applicant has concurred or has not objected to proposed self-imposed mitigation measures for parks and rec, recreation, transportation, and for school facilities. There are 8 SEPA mitigations as found in the DNS. Understand SEPA mitigations are, when I do that, that's my role as the SEPA official. I'm kind of working for the state at that time, making sure that so these are in addition to any conditions that we come up with. Our resolution will list specific conditions. The SEPA mitigations are in addition to those. The school district appealed the determination on June 22nd. And then, but they did reach agreement with the applicant on September 3rd, and they withdrew their SEPA or their appeal. Fire suppression will be primarily provided through fire separation requirements, or if they decide to install a system, like say a 20,000 gallon tank or something along those lines, that would be processed and approved through Fire District 3. Franklin PUD serves the area for power. These are suggested conditions of approval from the primarily public works on this page for transportation requirements and cul-de-sacs and things along those nature.
So Derek, there's a reference to a cul-de-sac, but there is no cul-de-sac in this one, correct?
None proposed. Basically, if they're saying that if you do decide to put one in, this is the way you need to do it.
Okay, all right.
The property lies out of both Skibbett and Franklin County Irrigation District service areas. So they will have to, they won't have access to an outside irrigation source. Therefore, they'll be having to use the exempt well
Yeah, I'm
process.
pretty well familiar with it,
Yeah.
the State Department of Ecology exempt well rules. And so that raises one of my questions, which is the 5,000 gallons of water per day. You clearly say the entire subdivision. How many lots was this total? 8?
8.
Okay. And that's both for Well, that's for all domestic use, so that's potable water as well as irrigating up to a half acre per lot.
Correct.
Okay, is that intended that it's all off of one community group B well, or is each lot intended to have its own well?
Each lot would have its own well, but the entire subdivision, see, the exempt well applies to 4, but if they decide to go beyond that, then it's similar to what we had with Columbia Bluff. Yeah, no, Columbia Bluff had its own irrigation, I think. It's more like Kohler and, which was 17, and Douglas. What did we call it? Douglas had a different name though.
Well, rather than come up with an
But anyways.
example, maybe just tell me if it's more than 4 lots, what's the rule?
The rule would still apply. They don't get to do, it's all 8 lots have to share in that daily. There's not an exception for when you go above that.
Okay, and where did this constraint, rule, restriction, where did it come from?
The 5,000 limit,
I understand that there is an exemption to permitting under the State Department of Ecology's exempt well rules. And
Right.
one of them, well, there are several. One is stock watering that we had a
Right.
famous court case out of Franklin County, but there's potable domestic use, right?
Mhm.
Drinking water basically, and irrigating up to a half acre of grass or lawn area.
mhm,
And there are others, but it sounds like you're saying that there's 8 lots here. And well, I don't want to tell you what you're saying. You tell me, because I'm not following.
it's just that. There's 8 lots. They've chosen, so that 5,000 gallons gets divided through the 8 lots.
And who determined that? Because right now, if they were to go and make this 1 lot or keep it as 1 lot and build a house on it, they could get 5,000 gallons off of that 1 well.
It's the choice of the applicant as they put together their subdivision proposal. So they've gone in eyes wide open. They know that they've been told by us and their engineer that this would be the results. Another way they could have done it was, there's different ways they could have laid it out.
Sure. Well, sure. And one of the issues here, let's just cut to the chase, is that these wells are not metered. And there's no requirement under state law that I'm aware of for them to be metered. There's discussion of maybe going to that at some point. So has anyone in your department looked at whether or not 8 residences with a half acre each, which would be 4 acres of lawn plus 8 residences, whether or not 5,000 gallons a day is adequate? Is there a standard anywhere that,
Well,
I mean, if this were, a long plat and you had a lot more lots, at some point you'd say 5,000 is not enough.
right, it's about 20 acres or 20 lots is
20
where the
lots?
breaking point usually occurs, somewhere right around in that area, depending on the specific usages.
So that implies 250 gallons a day
That is the
per
average.
residence.
That is the average residential use in an urban setting.
With a half acre of lawn.
With a half acre, it's probably going to be closer to somewhere in that 300 gallons a day.
Okay. So to your knowledge, we're not violating any Department of Ecology or other rules, laws, WACs or anything by authorizing 8 lots with a 5,000 gallon a day allocation for all 8.
And the health department indicated that they're generally okay with the proposal. The health department did not object or express any concerns about this proposal either with regard to the well.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead? I've got questions about some of the conditions when we get there.
Okay. And then just I apologize.
Well, since you're headed into conditions there, it looks like,
Yeah.
let me just tell you, my next question is going to be about condition 1C, which commits lot owners via the plat to, quote, participate in, unquote, future LIDs and RIDs.
Mhm.
Has that been standard practice on short plats?
Short plats and long plats,
Both.
if they're within proximity to where it would be appropriate, yeah.
Okay. So you're implying then with that statement that they're committed to participate in future LIDs, assuming that the LIDs are supported by the appropriate number of people participating.
Correct.
Okay. Because you could read it, I believe, to say that you're required to vote in favor of and participate in an LID. This is saying you have to participate in the LID as opposed to the LID process. And the distinction becomes really important when you're telling people, for example, with the city of Pasco, when you want to get a permit and the city says that you're required to waive your water rights so that your vote in an annexation would be proxy to the city in exchange for receiving city water. This is essentially saying, I believe that if you want this short plat approved, you have to waive your vote in an LID and agree to support the LID. So maybe you can take a look at that offline. I don't know that it has to hold us up today. We've created a public record here that makes it clear, if anybody needs to check, that it only requires them to participate in the LID RID process. It doesn't necessarily compel them to vote in favor of an LID.
Yeah. This is a public works comment, so I'll have to go to them to confirm their intent, but that's how I've always interpreted it.
Yeah, it's a requirement to participate in the process, not to support or vote for the LID.
It's generally difficult to waive a person's right. But
Unless you do it as a condition of a
Condition.
plat from the
Right.
legislative authority of the
Yep.
county,
Yep.
and therein
I
lies the
don't
problem.
like going
All
there.
right, great. Thanks, let's move on. We've got it on the record that the requirement is merely to participate in the process.
And then, so I suggested motion is as,
Can we just jump down to condition
Yep.
3E? Do you mind?
no, not a problem.
This places a final, quote, long plat, unquote, fee of $200. I don't recall, this is inside or outside of the UGA?
It's outside, it is.
It's
long.
outside.
Yeah, if it were a short plat, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Okay, well, obviously, you and I know the distinction between the number of lots between inside and outside. I think it's 4 and 9.
It's 9 inside, 4 outside.
Okay,
So,
so this is outside
correct,
and it's more than 4,
correct.
and therefore the long plat fee kicks in even though it's not a long plat. Well, technically it is because it's outside the UGA.
It is.
Okay,
correct.
great. That was the question. Okay, that's all my questions. Thanks.
Derek, I'd like you to go back to your map earlier in your presentation for access.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, on the top of that picture, the red line's coming in.
Yeah, starts at,
What road's that coming off of there?
that's Ivy.
Ivy?
Road. Yeah.
And whose property is that access coming across? And have they given permission for an easement?
My understanding is that that is a pre-existing access easement that was created at the time of subdivision.
So it was already granted.
That's my understanding.
Okay, now go to the bottom of the picture. What's
Yeah.
that road there?
This is Roberta Road. It really effectively ends kind of like, it's developed pretty good up to this point, and as it keeps moving west,
And
Right,
that's
yeah,
an
right.
undeveloped road.
it just gets funky. Yeah. In fact, a lot of people apparently go like this and wrap around this crop circle when they leave. It's not a road, but that's
No.
what they do.
Not a road.
I want to say it's 52 is down here somewhere. But yeah, the applicant would install the road up to this point.
He would build that road?
He would need to build that road up to that point.
If he's going to build that road up to that point, then the access from the other end, is that why that gentleman at the last meeting was so upset?
Frankly, I have no idea. I did misspeak at the hearing such that I said we only We didn't get any comments. I did find that we had a comment that was in the packet that was talking about accessing off of Road 48, which this proposal does not propose to do. I mean, you could get to 48 eventually from here, but it doesn't do a direct access. I frankly don't know
Okay.
what.
Because I don't know who he was, and I don't know
I don't
why
know what he was talking
pretty
about
upset.
either. So,
So Jack, Roberta Road runs east-west along the bottom of the parcel, and Quail Street, soon to be renamed Quail Road, runs east-west on the northern edge of the property. It only goes halfway, is that right?
yeah,
Okay, and both of those are going to be required ingress egress points for the 8 lots?
they're not technically required. They're proposed by the applicant. They're the ones who want to put it in.
So this could lawfully be developed just with access off of Roberta Road on the south?
That's my understanding. It's not until you hit, I want to say, 30 units that you require a secondary access.
And that could be done without a hammerhead or a cul-de-sac for emergency vehicle turnaround?
No, you would still need an emergency turnaround.
Okay, so if you had a single ingress egress, you'd have to have some sort of a turnaround incorporated.
Yes,
You couldn't do it like it's proposed with a single straight road. Okay,
correct.
all right. So then the way it's proposed, it's clear that the intent is to use both Quail and Roberta as ingress egress.
Yes.
But they could change that by adding a cul-de-sac. I get it. Okay, thanks.
I thought that top road was Ivy.
Ivy's up here. We're talking about this access.
Is that called Quail?
This is going to be Quail Road
It's currently Quail Street.
Street. Yeah, it's currently not there. It's just that they proposed it that way. The access or the right of way is there. It just doesn't have a name. And they decided, I guess they wanted to call it Quail Road or Street. So you would come up, hit here, then it would go like that.
Well, happy to have further discussion, but this time I move for approval of Resolution 2021-231 as presented in the matter of SUB 2021-06 Zaragoza.
I second with discussion. So you pointed out that this is outside the UGA, maximum 4 lots, and they're going with 8.
The maximum for a short plat.
For a short
application.
plat.
Yeah, and they're going, because it's outside, it's 8 lots, therefore it triggers a subdivision or a long plat process, which is why we're here.
Yeah,
Because the average lot size in the area is 1 acre. That's the minimum.
the average lot size in the area is 1 acre.
Yeah, I mean, not south. If you're south going into that crop circle, that's not part of Clark's addition, but the majority of Clark's addition is 1 acre lots.
And they are restricted on their water use also? Or are they getting their water use at?
Some people, there is a community well, but it's towards the north.
Are they included in the South Columbia Basin Irrigation District or the Pasco Irrigation District?
That I don't know. You talking about the rest
Clark
of the
addition.
facility?
Clark
I would have
District.
to check. I had assumed that they were in one of their service areas when they submitted the application, but I found out that nope, neither of them have facilities in the area. It would technically be Franklin County's, from what I understand, irrigation districts, but they just have no assets in the area. So though it's in their map maybe area, they don't have any services.
I think it's in their service area. I don't think they have infrastructure.
That's the word. Thank you. That's the wording I was looking for.
And all the other 1 acre lots have their own well?
Yes, except for, no, like I said, there's some up, and I would have to find,
They're on a community well?
there's some that are on a community well. Yeah, there is a water, a Clark's Addition water service. But it only hits a proportion of the properties. And this isn't one of them.
And there's been no disruption in their water usage as far as the depth of the wells? Has anybody had to drop their wells deeper on this?
Not that anybody's informed me, but I don't know that they would inform me. That would go
Yeah.
to a different agency. It's outside of my purview.
Health District has already signed off on it.
Correct.
Surprised they didn't encourage or even require a group well system, but maybe
Cool.
they think distributed draw is better.
Who did you say already signed off on it?
The health district is sent.
Oh, the health
and-
district.
And they haven't, they did not express a concern. Ecology also was sent a letter. They didn't express a concern.
And the planning commission did vote in favor of it?
Correct, 4. In fact, we needed, and on these types of actions, there must be a minimum of 4 votes. So it was unanimous of all the attending. Subdivisions require a majority of the body, not just the majority of the attendees for their recommendation on a subdivision. So the 4 attending did all vote unanimously.
Okay, we did have a motion within the closed record hearing. I take it that we can make the motion and pass it before we close the record hearing?
It'd be appropriate to close the hearing before we actually vote.
So at this time, is there any other discussion?
No other questions. Thank you.
So at this time, I will close the closed record hearing. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, somebody will grab Rocky. We'll get him back in here for the next closed record hearing. Derek, you're not going anywhere.
Nope.
Cup 2021-08.
Thank you, Chair. Almost there.
Okay, Commissioner Mullen, back in the room. So at this point in time, I will open the closed record hearing on Cup 2021-08 Baker Daily Winery, Resolution 2021-251. Derek, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. This is as mentioned, a request to locate a commercial winery in the Eltopia area. Property is located to the south of Hill Drive, east-west, north. Yeah, Summit Loop's kind of, well, it loops. So it's kind of right at this junction of the intersection. I'll show you here in a second. Address is 450 Summit Loop. So this is the subject property. Summit Loop goes like this. That's why we got the strange kind of guidance there, trying to orient it. This is Hill Drive, goes up here, and then there's Eltopia West is the main drag up here. Then that shoots off that way. It's a large lot residential area. Comp plan's rural settlement, zoning's rural community 1, RC1. Originally, we received a request for a deviation for a accessory structure roof height. However, when staff started investigating, during the research on the proposal, the request, we discovered that there was an operation already in place for a commercial winery, which and to reflect the addition of the commercial winery. And then they also, since they were going for that, with a tasting room and a sales floor in the future. The current property size of the parcel is 3.12. Area to be used is 2 acres. There's
Our
already.
audio is not working at the moment. We're gonna.
Just a minute, Derek.
Just hold.
We have a problem, Karen?
they're not having any sound. Can we do a 5-minute recess?
At this point in time, we'll take a 5-minute recess and reconvene.
So I have it going right now.
Excuse me?
I have it going right now. I flipped it from recess to, so whoever you're talking to, can you ask them if they can hear now? On this.
Testing. If you're out there and you can hear the meeting, would you please text me and tell me if you can hear me or not?
Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3.
They can still hear. Yeah.
Surely. Because I have it going right now. So testing 1, 2, 3. Okay,
All right,
we'll
let's go.
continue. Sorry about that, Derek.
It's fine.
I've got 3 different people said they could hear us, so we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll reconvene, and Derek, if you'll keep presenting.
Yep. Okay. Let me just. So as mentioned, property's 3.12, area to be used is approximately 2 acres. However, when you throw in the grapes, it's probably closer to 2.5 would be being utilized by the facility. This is a proposed site plan. So they've already got grapes back here. When I went out to the site, if I remember correctly, it was pretty much grapes, all of this. So this is the proposed accessory building. This is the existing on the property now, and there's the house. And then the rest of this would be proposed in grapes. I don't know if the septics affect that or not. That's kind of outside of my bailiwick. But that's what they're doing right now. Currently, this is under grapes. And then this is pictures of the existing structures on the site, not the proposed. So the RC1 zone does not list commercial wineries and or rural retail businesses, either permitted or conditional use. So what happens then is staff makes an interpretation. Our initial interpretation was growing grapes, production of wine should be considered a commercial agricultural use. The RC1 zone lists ag use commercial as a conditional use. However, tasting rooms and or on-site sales should be considered retail activities, and staff's interpretation is that such uses are not intended to be located within the RC1 zones. The first interpretation is based on the fact that these folks have been out there, whether they should or they shouldn't, with or without the permit. They've been doing something for 3 years, and we never received a complaint or a concern about that. So we were like, okay, that's not having an impact in the neighborhood. However, the idea of the tasting room with additional traffic in this residential area was not really what the RC1 zones were intended for. So it's a little bit of a split decision on staff's part. I'll get into a little bit more of that later. So staff performed all the proper notifications, mailed notices to property owners within 1 mile, posted the property. The CEBA determination of non-significance was issued on August 5th. Public notice was published on August 19th. So we received 1 comment in support. However, we received quite a bit, quite a few that were against. We had 3 individual letters. Basically, all 3 kind of hit on the same subjects. The one on the left is actually a petition that was signed by, I want to say 10 people. No, 8 people. In addition to the letter writer. And then, like I said, they hit on the same subject. Primary concerns are the fact that this is a quiet residential neighborhood. Children are running around. Folks bought these houses for the purpose of being in a quiet, large lot residential neighborhood, not to have a business in the middle of it with traffic driving up and down. There's concerns expressed about transport vehicles as well, whether or not the roads were adequate for that. Public Works has reviewed the application. They did not have a concern with the volume of traffic on the roads as they are currently designed. However, again, this RC1, this particular part of this area is clearly residential, large lot residential uses. There are no other, I mean, there's people that have gardens or maybe a few animals or something like that, but not a commercial operation. Definitely not retail or folks, a draw, a traffic draw. Public Works' comments were that approach permit would be required. Nothing specific from ecology. The health districts basically stated that the existing well was designed for a single family well. This would need to be upgraded to a Group B water system. They would have to install new on-site sewage system, which, you know, they do show to drain fields on their site plan. But regardless, if this were to be approved, they would need to install that. And then they would have to get a food service license as required under the WACs in order to have a tasting room. Now, the Planning Commission held a public hearing, took testimony from the public, and modified or chose different interpretation. And the Planning Commission recommended findings of fact are as shown. First of all, a commercial winery does not meet the definition of an ag use commercial in the RC1 zoning district, and that it's not in accordance with the goals and policies of the county development regulations. It will not adversely affect public infrastructure. That's a technical call. Public Works indicated that it would not. Proposal will not be constructed, maintained, and operated to be in harmony with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity. Again, this is a single-family residential. Staff's initial recommendation was allow the winery, but no tasting room and no on-site sales. That was our recommendation. The proposal will be more objectionable to nearby properties because you're going to have traffic, you're going to have people coming in, trucks, this type of thing. Whereas right now, again, it's single-family residential traffic with an occasional school bus. The proposal will not endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare is located. Now, for a planning commission recommendation, the proposal should meet all 6 of those. So the fact that it failed on 3 or 4 is justification for denial. Also, though, in your packet, again, the planning commission's a recommendation. The board has the right to deviate from that if they so desire. That's why staff provided both a resolution to approve or deny. And if approved, then staff recommends the following conditions in addition to the standard language, but the recommendation is to deny.
You ready for questions?
Yep.
Questions, commissioners?
Derek, on condition number 6, it said that will not endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. The comments in the petition from the neighbors living in that area, what was their concern? Wasn't it health and safety of children and roadways?
Some mention regarding a school bus being in close proximity, and there's a daycare. However, endanger the school bus, first of all, would, due to when the kids are there and stuff.
Yeah.
I can't speak to kids running in the streets, those types of things.
But this is your item 6 that came from staff, from your staff?
Staff proposed this condition and it was not determined to be different, I guess.
So item 6 came from your staff. It seems to be at odds with the public comments made about safety and kids and roads that you spoke to yourself a few minutes ago. I'm just asking if I heard that right.
Yeah, this is the planning commission and endanger. Again, it's traffic.
Okay.
I mean, there's traffic in the streets.
All right.
So that's what I'm saying. The volume of traffic would not have endangered folks. That might have been a concern, but it was not what was determined through the agent's comments and review of the application.
So it sounds like degrees.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. And the vote on the planning commission was unanimous, no?
Yes.
Okay.
So on your public comment, the people that signed the petition were all those, the nearby neighbors in that area?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no questions.
Is there any other questions?
Nope.
Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. I would first move to close the closed record hearing and entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the recommendation of the Planning Commission and deny the CUP 2021-08 based on the written findings of fact.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Okay, we'll move down to
Thank you.
rescind salary commission resolution 2021-252. Keith.
Yes, last week at our commissioner meeting, we had a brief discussion about the difficulty in assembling a salary commission in Franklin County due to the lack of the representation from the business sector, experienced personnel management folks, and it was the guidance from the board to prepare a resolution to rescind the ordinance that created the elected official salary committee and go to the Washington Citizens Commission on Salaries for elected officials to set elected salaries. The staff work was completed by Carly. I have reviewed it. I think there's probably some questions about what needs to happen next, but before you is consideration of that resolution.
On that resolution, Keith, as it is read, it really doesn't enable any of the electeds to have any say in this. I see a couple of them are here in the room, and I would entertain if they had anything to state on this, to please come forward.
It's been a consensus amongst about half so far, and we only had this morning to convene and talk and email one another. But we certainly as electeds would like an opportunity to at least discuss this amongst ourselves, discuss it with HR, with Keith, or whatever as to what would be brought before the commissioners for approval. None of us that we're aware of, at least 5 of us, had no input and were not contacted to have any input on this. So it would be my request, at least 2 other electeds' requests, that this be pulled at this time until maybe separate the commission, dissolve that, and then maybe have a resolution on things and allow us to have a consensus and get together and have input.
Can you tell me who the other electeds are you're speaking for?
I am not speaking for them. I said it was
sounded like
discussed amongst us. Curtis can speak for himself. Are you in
Okay.
agreement with what I said, Curtis? Curtis is in agreement. Mike's in agreement.
Mike Gillian?
Yeah, and 2 others had not been able to respond to the emails yet. They may have since I walked into the room.
Okay,
So
but
there's
you're,
at least 3 of us that had no
but you're
input
not
that would like
speaking for
input.
Mike.
Sorry?
But you're not speaking for Mike.
Not directly for Mike, no.
Okay.
It was discussed and his feelings were identical to mine and Curtis's is what I just
I
voiced.
see another elected walking in the room. I think she would probably like to have a say on this. Would you like to state on this, Ms. Kelzer? Come to the mic, please. You don't have to put on a mask. That way we can hear what you have to say.
Well, before we decide to vacate this, I think that we should all be given the opportunity to talk about it and decide how we are going to be, decide how the 5 electeds are going to be involved in all of this, instead of having somebody make that decision for us.
I think at this time, though, all we were going to do, Keith, is just vacate the salary commission because of lack of participation. As I read through the resolution, though, are we?
This resolution as presented would commit you to a course of action to follow the Washington Citizens Commission. I think it would be appropriate to just have a floor motion to rescind ordinance 04/2021.
Yes.
That can be documented, and then we can decide on a process for what future salary considerations would be for elected officials.
And I would entertain that you would entertain the elected.
Chairman, I've got some comments I'd like to make.
Go ahead, Commissioner Peck.
The discussion that got us to this point goes back several months, and it was a desire to have our local citizens who pay taxes determine what we all should be compensated. And obviously, we've gone down that road, and it appears that we can't find the people who meet the qualifications in the statute to fill these positions. I think that's unfortunate, but I get the reality of it. I agree that this is premature, that there hasn't been sufficient discussion, and that the other elected should be included in the discussion. Although it's ultimately a decision by the board, we still should seek their voices on it. I don't agree with the resolution that is in the packet today, because it doesn't just rescind the resolution, it also ties us to a different mechanism that would bring automatic increases. And lastly, I don't see anywhere where this has had a civil legal review, and I certainly could be wrong, but my recollection is that a legislative body can't bind the expenditures of a future body, and by establishing a practice where it automatically increases based on some formula, I don't believe is lawful in Washington. Could be wrong, but that's why we probably should get a legal review before we entertain any kind of a mechanism that would automatically tie us to, say, a West Coast CPA or an executive salary schedule. I don't think that's lawful. So I agree that it's premature. We should involve the other electeds. We should not approve the resolution presented. And I will be happy to move that the board rescind the resolution authorizing the existing salary commission for our inability to attract the necessary participants.
I would concur with Mr. Peck. I believe that the electeds should have a voice in this, and that we should move forward and rescind the salary commission, but not approve the resolution in which way it is written now.
So my comment was a motion. Is that a second?
Yes.
Thank you.
There's been a motion and a second discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that takes us down to administration office business. Keith.
I don't have any other matters for consideration. I will ask for a closed session coming up, though.
Okay. So we're down to public comment. Is there any public comment? Anybody on the phone?
Not at this time.
Not at this time?
No.
Okay, so at this time, then, we will move into a closed session on collective bargaining with Keith Johnson. Excuse me?
No,
It's just a closed session on collective bargaining with Keith Johnson, clerk of the board, 3 commissioners, and Carly.
Mr. Chairman, I just got a notice that we do have a caller on the phone.
Okay,
I don't know if you want to.
we'll take the call for public comment, and then we'll go into the closed session.
Good morning. Are you there?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had called in earlier and they told me to call back, and then you guys rushed through it. So, through the administrative business. So anyhow, a couple of things. First of all, I'm not happy that you guys rescinded the salary commission. I can tell you, if you would have given it to me to find people, I could have done it in a month. It just seems strange that we're able to get all these commissions filled, including the redistricting one, in just a matter of weeks, but we somehow can't get the salary commission, when I have heard from people throughout our community, business people, on how disgusted they are at their property taxes and being raised. And I just cannot see that people weren't willing to be on it. I never saw it advertised. I never heard of anyone being asked to be on it. So I think that we need to relook at that. Very frustrating. The other thing is that according to RCW 42.52 under the WAC 30-08-090. A recusal may, for someone who has a conflict, it may include leaving the room if it's requested by the chair or a fellow committee member. And that's usually if the person cannot refrain from piping in, then they would be asked to leave the room. There's no, I don't see any evidence of that with Commissioner Mullen. He did not have to leave the room. But also, I am quite concerned at the fact that the redistricting commission keeps getting postponed without a public vote or a public discussion. The chain of authority is the people under the that's guaranteed by the Constitution. All authority lies in them. We give the electeds that authority, who then give the bureaucrats the authority, but it has to be done publicly. The redistricting commission was voted on publicly. You cannot postpone it. I don't care what attorneys say or whatever you guys discuss in executive session. It doesn't matter, because you have to, it has to be a public vote because it was publicly put into place. So whatever your attorneys are telling you or whatever discussions you're having is really no impact on what the redistricting commission does, because you don't even have to take what they say. So it's a separate path. The redistricting commission does not work for the administrator, and they do not work for the attorneys. They work for the people, and they were voted on by the representatives of the people. And legally, you guys, I mean, it was illegal for it to be paused. I just want, and it's been done twice now. So I want you guys to stop doing that, because now 2 weeks have been wasted. There's been no vote publicly. Why they're postponed is no concern of mine, except that they've been postponed without a public vote. So that's what I leave with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Keith, we have that meeting scheduled, correct?
We do. We're
Yes.
having our next public hearing on the 15th of November.
Yes. The 15th of November, we're going to have the fourth meeting in East Pasco.
Correct. It's scheduled to be at Robinson Elementary School on East Lewis Street, corner of East Lewis and.
Okay, with that, we'll move into our, get the wording right again here. Our closed session on collective bargaining. Okay, we're at a closed session and back to regular session. Is there any other business for the good of the board? County, I should say. Keith, I have something here. Did you see this Grays Harbor resolution?
Did see something on the Grays Harbor resolution. What was that referring to?
The fact that
Oh, the vaccine
mandates.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're taking.
vaccine verification requirement.
Yeah, that they
And
were
I-
not going to require anything more than what the state has required. I did see that.
Yes, and I think we need to probably do something to this effect for our county employees too also. That's my
Is
personal
anyone
opinion.
anticipating that we should do something more than the state requirement?
No, less. We're not going to ask for any vaccination verification in Franklin County.
But we are going to comply with the state law?
State law? I don't believe this is state law. This is a mandate passed down by a governor that was not put forth through the legislature, was not debated, was not voted on. This is not state law. That's where the argument ensues.
Okay, let's use your terminology. Is it the intent to comply or not comply with the mandate?
It's my intent to comply with the state constitution and the federal constitution.
That's good, I agree with that.
Okay.
Is it to comply or not comply with the state mandate?
It would be not to comply with the state mandate.
So the proposal is a resolution saying that we won't comply with the state mandate.
Yes.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
So I as one commissioner, and I would need a second to join me in this, to draft a resolution stating that our employees are the employees of this county government and that they are not of the state and therefore they are not required by this state mandate.
I'll second the motion.
It's not a motion, just looking for a consensus of a couple commissioners that would be willing to draft this for a discussion and debate and then a vote.
I'm always happy to have a discussion on the merits. I'd respectfully submit that you get thorough legal counsel on it before proceeding. It's one thing to take a position and express your view, just may want to give special attention to whether or not it puts employees in jeopardy or in some way puts the county in jeopardy. So I'd recommend getting a thorough legal review and always happy to discuss and debate issues. Right now, I'm not in favor of doing it. I don't think it's productive, and I do think it probably brings some liability on our employees, but it doesn't mean we can't have the discussion.
I believe we have two commissioners, Keith, so maybe we'll get that drafted.
Okay.
And do you have a copy or would you
I
like
do
a
have a
copy?
copy.
You do have a copy. Okay. Is there anything else for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.